They really make it seem a lot easier than what it is. And what I mean by that is there are a number of logistical things that it takes a while to get used to in working in Turnitin.com. And so I'm going to kind of slow it down a little bit based on that video. And it really, like I said, it's simple in concept, but there are a number of issues that you'll encounter. But eventually it all becomes worthwhile. And the first thing is, if you do not have an account, Deanne will hook you up with an account. Whether you use it or not, I think it's a good idea just to have an account, because you never know when you might decide to start using it. The number of teachers that have accounts does not affect the cost. Is that correct, Deanne?
Correct. It's the number of students.
It's the number of students, and don't worry about the number of students, because the English department pretty much has all 900 or so of our students already signed up on Turnitin.com.
It doesn't matter how many classes they're in.
They could be 50 classes or one, so the cost is always the student body population. Now, what I want to show you is the basics, because probably at this point, if you decide to use it, you're probably going to stick with the basics. Now, that stuff about pure mark and grade mark, I will quickly show it to you, but you know, it might be you start small and you start going into those areas as things progress. The first thing, obviously, when you get a page is, if you were to sign in, you'd have a blank page, and you'd click Add a Class. Okay. Now, what I want you to look at is over here where it says Class Type. A standard class. So if I create a standard class, I might call it third period English 10. All right? And basically what that would do is create a class just for third period. And what we used to do was, like, for example, we all had 6 sections. I'd create a standard class for all 6 of them. Well, that actually was kind of a dumb thing to do, because you can create a master class. All right? And when you create the master class, and I'm going to make up a class, I'm just going to call it Turnitin.com. Okay? And what will happen here is the first thing it'll say, TA join password. I would just type your normal password in there. Do not worry about this. This literally is for the college system that a professor may have 3 or 4 TAs that are teaching different sections of the same course.
Is that how co-teachers could get in there?
I have no idea.
We've never used it.
We've never used it before. So it might be something worthwhile to look into. So, but the point being here is you probably would just, you know, your normal password, whatever you use, then you hit submit. And you'll see this ID number and all this stuff. Right? For a master class, do not worry about this information. Okay? This would only be for the TA, not the student. Okay? So I hit continue. And you'll notice down here at the bottom, I have this new Turnitin.com class. Okay? And so you'll see plus section. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add new sections. Now again, you go through this TA thing. So this might be where Sue, for our 2 classes, I probably could go in and put Sue Lala, SLALA, right, at prairiepride.org. Now normally I would just put my own stuff in, because I don't have a TA. I'm not sharing the class with anybody. But in this case, Sue. And this is our little experiment to see if this works. Okay? So I hit submit. And then what I do is I'm going to create new sections. Okay, so this is first session, and the enrollment password will be first.
And the enrollment password is for kids.
Right.
So when they enroll in the class, it's a one-time thing that they have to put in that gives them permission to enroll in that class.
So here's what would happen on this one. This now is the number and the password I would give the students. Okay? And It's really not that big of a deal for you, because on this side, you'll notice the number is right there still, so you'll always have access to it. Lots of teachers that just use their last name as the password. So,
Or sophomores or juniors or something.
right, so that's something that you never forget. You don't have to keep looking up. And so you'll notice too, then, well, wait a second. I'm going to create a second session. And Sue, I'm just going to put you in there again. Okay? And I'm going to call this one second session. Submit. Again, here's the class number. Here's the password that I would give second period. Notice that you have to give section numbers and passwords by class period, not the master class. Okay? And so now I've got 2 sessions. And what's kind of cool now is when I create assignments, I don't have to go into each session now to create the assignment. I go into my master class, create the new assignment, assignment 1, and I'll go through this stuff here. You've got your start date for the assignment, which really doesn't matter that much, okay? The due date is when the kid has to have it turned in by. The post date is when the kid can see any comments you have made, can see grade mark results, things of that nature, okay? And then there's all sorts of optional settings. You could enter in special instructions. Hello, is that piano? Hello. Do you want to push the assignment to your other sections? This then would put it in first session 1 or session 1 and session 2. If you click no on the push, it won't push it to the other sections. Okay. Allow submissions after the due date. That's totally your discretion on whether you want to take them. I will say this. It actually probably is easier to take submissions after the due date than it isn't, because it will highlight in the assignments that it's late. Does that make sense? As opposed to, because what will happen is you'll have 5 kids who miss the due date. So then you've got to go in, they've got to give you their assignment, you have to submit it. Do you see what I mean? Or you have to go in, change the due date so they can submit it again. It actually is
after the due date.
right, because they can't submit it all after the due date if you mark no. All right, and just in my experience, I have found it easier to take it. Now, I may not be giving them credit for it because it is late, but at least I still have it. I can decide what I want to do with it. I can decide if points are going to be taken off, etc. Plus, you will have kids who are sick or whatever reason. So I just recommend always taking submissions after the due date because you can always see if they are late. The originality report, sometimes you may not want to generate the plagiarism report. For example, I had the kids submit some quizzes through Turnitin.com, and it all came up 100% plagiarism because they typed the questions in, so they all showed up. And some of the answers were one-word answers, so they were the same answer. So in hindsight, I should have just turned off the originality report. This you can decide on when they can see the report, depending on what you want to do. This one actually can be very handy if you have them, because many kids will accidentally submit their works cited page, and if that happens, it's going to show up as a high percentage of plagiarism. So you can always get rid of that. Exclude quotes. I don't, just because I like to see how much of their writing is their own writing versus how much is the source's writing. Small matches is a good one to try because you will get a lot of weird phrases that just bring up 2 words, and you know it's not plagiarism, it's just random whatever popped up, okay? Allow the student to see the report. I would never worry about this standard paper repository, just always put it there, okay? And then I have yet to perfect rubrics with this. We tried to upload some of our own and we keep getting errors, formatting errors. So I'm wondering if we're going to have to go in and create, a district won't upload, anything that I formatted that's got like boxes and stuff in it, for some reason it won't open up. We tried to put it in PDF, wouldn't open up. So we may have to go in and mess around with that. And then the E-Rater, if you want to, you have to turn it on, okay, when you create the assignment. The E-Rater is that grammar, it's like grammar check on steroids, okay? And you can decide if you just want to check for whatever, spelling, etc., etc. And if you'll notice down here at the bottom, it says, would you like to save these options for future assignments? A lot of teachers end up saving it for future assignments because they're going to use the same format every time. Okay, that way you don't have to go through the optional settings each and every time. Okay, and so I've created this assignment. I hit submit. And you'll notice that it says push assignment dates. This means I want to put it in all my sections. I hit submit. And now I actually have my first assignment that I've created for my Turnitin.com class. And you will notice, of course I don't have anybody signed up yet, so you'll know, I will see what happens here. You'll notice that the assignment is in there. Okay? And then obviously if I go to the other session, you'll see that the assignment's in there as well. Okay, now that's setting up an assignment. Now let me show you some examples. So here's my 8, well let's go to English 10. Okay? And so what happens here is you will see I've got 10 assignments in there that we've done so far this year. Okay? And that's the master class. If I go back to an actual class, I'll go to my 5th period class. This is kind of what the kids see. And so if we look at down here, Yertle the Turtle CER, you'll notice the due dates are there. Okay.
I have a student's account.
We can do that in a little bit here. Okay. And what happens is you can see that 23 of my 26 kids have submitted this assignment. All right. Now there's more actions here. Maybe I want to change the settings, okay, of the actual assignment, which is what we just did a minute ago. I want to submit a kid's paper. Okay, maybe it came in after the due date and I wasn't taking late word. Then I can actually delete the assignment. In fact, Dan, it's encouraged that after semester, right, you delete your entire class.
Which will delete all the assignments.
Because it frees up space for us. Okay. Now what happens here is the view, this is where you as the teacher will go in, and you'll notice over here, this red one, Tristan turned that one in late. That's why it's highlighted in red. Okay. It looks like Joey turned his in late as well. Okay. And then I've got some people who still haven't even submitted it yet. Right. And I always look alphabetically because now when I'm grading it, I've got my grade book right next to me and I can submit things, etc. Now, this particular assignment, there's a couple of things when you look at assignments. You can click on the actual assignment here. He put the highlighting in. That's not Turnitin.com, so I'm going to find a different one without the highlighting because it's hard to see with the highlighting in there. I think I asked them to highlight this one. God damn it. All right, let me go back here. Get a different one. Okay. So, there's a couple of things here when you actually look at an assignment that you can do. You'll notice this thing spinning down there. I set this assignment up to have the E-Rater for it. Okay? So it automatically ran. A frustrating part, which we need to talk to Turnitin.com about, is in order to do the E-Rater, you literally have to open each paper one at a time and click on grade mark. There's not a way that you can do a grade mark for the whole class, okay? Which I hope they change sometime, where I can just click the class, say, run the E-Rater report for everybody. This is the originality report. In this case, nothing is going to show up. And we did a peer review of this assignment. And you will see here that Allison Mosbeck and Bryce Meeker did a peer review of this CER. Now, I'm not going to get too in-depth with this sort of thing yet. That probably would be for another session, because peer mark itself is pretty complex, and we only have 10 minutes till we're out of here right now. Okay? But it's worthwhile to experience. So this is kind of what you would see on your end. And they've got some interesting features as far as what you can do as the instructor. And I'll give you a simple example. Here's my first period AP class, and this was our first quiz. And these quizzes are pretty in-depth as far as what you can do with AP-wise. And so here's like Hunter Hunt's response. And you'll notice that over here, I could, if I wanted to, put in these comments, but I tend to use this thing to make comments. And what's also kind of cool is they have a voice comment instead of having to write it out. So I experimented with this, and here was,
Guten Tag. Good job. Particularly impressed with your response to number 9, the old friend and old friend. Yes, that is what is up, and the theme works very, very well. Be a little bit careful because you follow up number 10 with maybe being too much into that. It was more about the idea of his subterfuge as a predator hiding behind past, etc., to trigger. So just be a little bit careful with over-analysis. But still, I think this is fantastic. Keep it up here.
And voice comments were new this fall?
yeah. I experimented with it, thinking it would save time. It does and it doesn't. Does that make sense? Okay. And for the AP kids, I told them I always limit things to 2 to 3 comments, because I could be going on forever with comments. And so the voice thing worked pretty well. Now, normally what I would do is, and we'll look at Cuckoo's Nest, normally what I would do for comments is I would actually write something in there. So this was like with Mitch, a positive spin to the theme, not bad, you're kind of close, typo. But Kafka is a little less understanding of the family than what you might think. Okay? So you can always give them feedback through this, as well as the rubric. Now, like I said, I haven't perfected the rubric yet, so that's probably another lesson to come. But what happens here is, I think for where most of you are at, it would be creating assignments and then having the kids submit. Now, what I really, really like about having Turnitin.com is I've gone pretty much paperless now, because what happens is, you'll notice they literally just turn everything into Turnitin.com. And I haven't perfected the rubric yet with Turnitin.com, but what we've done a lot is I set the rubric right beside me. And as I read it on Turnitin.com, I fill out the rubric. What I absolutely love about Turnitin.com is, the kids are all listed in there. It's all alphabetical order. It's easy to see who's missing stuff, instead of flipping through the papers trying to find who didn't turn in that assignment or this assignment on time. It's easier for me to manage things with Turnitin.com. And what we also discovered in G Squared is we actually had all the kids in the 4 disciplines. They're now using Turnitin.com, and what happens is the kid, when he logs in or she logs in, sees English, sees world history, sees biology, sees, what am I missing, geometry. And so what happens is they have one place that they go to see all this. And another feature they didn't mention that this is alternative, you don't have to use it, is this calendar feature. And what this does is quite literally outlines, it's an assignment system. So the kid can click on the calendar, can see what we're doing on the day. And so this isn't too crazy. Download this, keep it, love it. There's a little clipboard here the kid can click on. And now they can download the document. And now they've got it in their possession. All right, instead of handing out papers and stuff, you got the computers now, they can just download this stuff straight through Turnitin.com. Now, I know a lot of people are using, Google sites and stuff can do the same thing for you. All right? So I'm not saying this is better or worse. It's just that my recommendation is if you're going to start using Turnitin.com to check for plagiarism and turning in assignments on a more regular basis, instead of updating your Google site all the time and then going to Turnitin.com, just do it all in Turnitin.com. All right. Now, we found there are issues, so please, there's a lot to learn with this. Okay, and hopefully, Deanne, we can offer. This is like a very introductory session. Hopefully, we can offer things about how do you set up PeerMark. I've fallen in love with PeerMark because what's really cool about it is I craft the questions. It randomly assigns the paper or the assignment to kids. If the kids don't put their names on the assignment, they have no idea whose work they are reading. So you eliminate that whole social peer review thing. You can craft all sorts of really good questions. They've got some pre-designed questions. So maybe next time on PL or some other time we can go more in depth with some of this stuff. What I would say is if you're interested, obviously have Deanne set you up. I have found, and this is not just me, the English department in general has found, the more you use it, the better the kids are at it. And what I mean by that is when we would only use it twice a semester for the big papers that came in, we'd always have chaos because the kids wouldn't know. They'd forget their passwords, they'd forget this, or they hadn't done it for 3 months. But now that we're using assignments for it all the time, kids don't even ask anymore. They know all the assignments in my classes go to Turnitin.com. There's nothing they hand to me. They just go straight to Turnitin.com. They look at their calendar, they see the assignment, and they just submit through Turnitin.com. It depends what you want to do. I'm doing quizzes through it. It's totally up to you on what you want to have them submit, but they're pretty good at using it. Question?
So you said you're pretty much paperless. What happens when you delete a class this semester? Do the students lose all their graded assignments this semester?
Do they lose what?
Do they lose all their graded assignments at this semester?
If you delete a class, all the assignments from within that class are gone too.
So the kids lose it.
So
Right.
the students lose it too?
Yep.
Yeah.
So what if they want to use it like for their portfolios?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to.
Well, then they'd have to keep their copies of it.
They have their own copy.
Right, yeah, because
The-
here, let me show you something. So I'll show you something very quickly. Oh, shoot, I almost need to be on it. Wait, I've got a kid. What happens is when they submit, I probably should show you a kid's side of this. No, I've got a fake name. This is Gern Cranium. He is signed up for AP Lit Composition. So when he goes to submit an assignment, he can upload it or copy and paste it. So they don't actually type the assignments into Turnitin.com. So, go
Will
ahead.
they lose all your remarks though and comments once the assignment's deleted through Turnitin?
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Everything's gone.
Right. And so if they wanted to use the paper as an artifact, that's where we make hard copies of the rubrics and things like that. Then we just had kids attach the rubric to the actual paper. But electronically anymore, they could just download the stuff. Download the stuff from here,
Yeah.
and then they'd have it. Because what happens is when they look at an assignment, they can turn around and download it from you.
With all the comments?
I believe so.
Okay. And then what happens in the semester when all your sections are different? Do they have to re-sign up?
Unfortunately, you have to create it again.
Okay. And
Yeah.
do they create their account with English 10? Okay.
They sign up for the class.
They have account.
Do you have access to their passwords?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
We make them
Use their
use their username and password, that's everything, campus, Google Docs, so it's their CCSD email and password
Okay.
first.
So-
That way we can help them if they
Right.
have problems.
When they're deleted too, that's still, like, it's in their system though, right? So,
Yes.
The
like,
paper is in their
So-
repository.
Yes.
like first semester, if someone
Yes.
using someone's from first semester,
Absolutely,
it'll pop up. Like,
absolutely. And guys, we have, the plagiarism tool is quite good. And I probably should have showed you a little bit more of the plagiarism tool, but it's fantastic in that you see that plagiarism and you click on it and then it'll show you where it came from. It'll show, you can even click on, open up the full site and it literally will take you to the Wikipedia article that they copied it from. The one that's always interesting, my favorite, is when you get a plagiarism hit and it brings up teachers, schools, okay? Now obviously the vast majority of the time a school pops up, it's not plagiarism, except when Prairie pops up.